Okay, we are live. We are live, and I'm actually here with my best friend, Kiana. She was
Hello.
with, yeah, there she is. Yeah, I should have warned you. She was with me at the when I went to go film this Vice education panel. And she stayed with me and saw what it was like for me right afterwards. It was actually 3.5 hours of recording and talking. I heard that the feminism one, which is the original one I was supposed to be on, was 5 hours of talking, and 3 hours was exhausting. And I will say that we spent an hour and a half to 2 hours. I think it was 3.5 hours. We spent 2 hours on LGBTQ issues and stuff like that. So this is a panel on education, but 2 hours of the conversation was on LGBTQ plus stuff. No, we didn't talk about the literacy rate. We didn't talk about, the prison to school to prison pipeline, which is actually true. Our kids are being institutionalized. I mentioned that in the video. We didn't talk about our English learners. We didn't talk about COVID and all the lockdowns and having our kids wear masks all day. We didn't get to talk about banned books, which I was looking forward to. No, we spent 2 hours talking about LGBTQ issues and then an hour and a half on the rest of the stuff. And then it was edited down to 43 minutes. So I'm noticing in the comments, a lot of people are saying this is so edited, and it is very much edited. In fact, a lot of the statements that I said on this Vice panel, they cut out everything in the middle that I said. They cut out everything in the middle. So they would have my first thing that I said and my last thing. So people would, my last statement. And so people, it could be, when you're explaining something, you want to be able to say your full point, and they just cut it out. But the people that were left leaning got to say their full points. So that's Vice for you. It wasn't friendly territory. They do a pretty good job on these debates, but yeah. Anyways, my friend Q, she's watched most of the debates. Would you say you're a Vice debate person?
Yeah, I watch pretty much all of them. I just find it really interesting. I think there's such a lack of conversation going on right now that's unfortunately has to be moderated. So in a lot of cases, because people are so crazy, and everybody is very passionate about the perspectives that they hold. So, which is fine. But it's difficult sometimes to have good conversations because there is no moderation going on. So I think that's what I like about Vice, and they tend to do a pretty good job, I think, of having a pretty split panel. And I think, that while they clearly lean left, like clearly with the editing, they just do, it is what it is. But I think that they do allow a fair amount of conversation from the conservative side, which is what I kind of like about what they're doing with Vice. I think it's just needed, and good on Vice for at least being open to doing it.
Yeah, I do think it was surprising to me when these Vice panels first came out, because it wasn't like they found all of like the worst conservatives or the people on the right. There were the, picking their nose ones, right? They found the conservatives that do have a good voice in all of this. And then the liberals that they do find liberals that aren't as crazy and extreme. I think the feminism panel, they got some in that they didn't know, but feminism is such a hot button issue. But on our education panel, they definitely chose, like, for example, the guy that's with the lipstick that obviously they're trying to turn into a star through this video. They wanted him to be the one that everyone was like, we love you. His name's Desmond, and he's a black guy with lipstick. You'll see him in a moment when we turn it on. But he's not as crazy as from what he looks like. He's not as crazy. Like, he doesn't even share his pronouns, so he says, even though he has lipstick and is gender fluid or gender non-binary. I don't remember, but anyways, and then but he also doesn't share his pronouns, and I guess he doesn't share his like gender stuff, but he also is I'm not quite sure what he does as an educator exactly, but yeah, so this is going to be my reaction to being on this panel, and also sharing a little bit more about what I said, because they did heavily edit a lot of my sayings. So thank you to all of you that are here. This is live. I may not get to your comments just because this is a reaction video to the Vice news, but I do see them, and thank you so much for being here. So let's get it going. Oh, wrong one. I'm new to StreamYards.
The privilege
very
discussion,
professional for me.
That's a great conversation for you to have with your child. But I don't think that taxpayer-funded hatred should be something that we allow in our schools.
Okay, bro, real talk though, like brother to brother, teaching white privilege does not inherently mean Black people are less. Factually incorrect.
So again, I stated at the beginning that they want to make the lipstick boy, the lipstick teacher, as a star. And so you'll notice that they very much highlight him. And yes, I do agree. Vice is the wokest trash. Like, you go on to, I don't recommend going on to, I'd rather have you watch my reaction here than going onto the Vice YouTube channel. I don't even know how their stuff is even allowed on YouTube.
It's so bad.
Yes.
When I was waiting for this to come out, I kept going all day yesterday because I was like so excited. And I was just like, what is this video list? Like, this is so bad.
It's trash.
It's horrifying.
It's like TLC trash TV for woke liberals. It's really bad.
Yeah.
It's not news. Anyways. So
No.
they want to make the guy in the lipstick a star, and you'll see this in the debate. Oh, wrong one. I keep going on to the StreamYard screen.
SATs.
No, wait. Gotta be careful.
I'm Mina Durson. I'm a correspondent here at Vice News, and we're going to talk about education today. We tried to bring a very diverse mix of voices here. Obviously, we're not going to be able to represent every single opinion out there.
So they say diverse mix of voices, but they always have a trans person on every single panel, and trans people are like 1% of the population. So there's certain people that they always represent. Always. Yeah. There's more Asians than trans people, but they always have to have a trans on these panels. Even the feminist panel, I think there was 2 or something.
Yeah, there was. And you know what I noticed in the comments when I was reading through the comments on this on YouTube? There were several people that pointed out that there's never any Hispanic people, which is the largest minority population in the country. So it's like, how, well, maybe, I don't know who's more, Hispanics or Black people. I'm not sure.
Hispanic now. Yeah,
is it?
I think it's Hispanic.
Yeah. So I thought, I was like, that is so true. And then a couple of people said, I've literally never seen an East, what do they call them? Eastern Asian or Southern Asian, Indian or Pakistani or whatever. They never represent those people. I was like, that is true. It's always black and white and then gender stuff. Always.
And they have to have at least 3 Black people. They can't have one Black person. If there was one Black person, they'd be like, there's only one Black person on the panel.
Which, if you have 6 people, wouldn't that be 13%? Is one person out of 6.
There were some people, even in the comments, that were like, where's the Black woman? Where's the Black woman? And I'm like, I guess I'm not. So Kamala, or however you say, she's considered a Black woman because she's on the left, even though she's like a quarter Black or something. She's got like Indian and white and all kinds of stuff. But me, I'm not considered a Black woman because, you know, the left I'm like, but I thought that was funny. I was like,
that is funny.
They needed someone who was like 300 pounds with a, you know, one of those bull rings, and then they'd be happy.
God.
When it comes to education, but we are really thankful for your time and for your perspectives. I also have 2 kids in school, so, you know, have experienced some of this from the parent side as well. So let's just start really broadly. What's the purpose of education?
I think the purpose of education is twofold. One, to help build and support the individual, but also help build and support society as a whole. Because even though you may not have a kid in education, you pay taxes to public school, because we as a society depend on and need education for society to work.
I think the purpose of education is to educate and not indoctrinate. And I think that in a lot of ways, we've strayed from that in the original purpose of what it's supposed to be.
I think it should be intelligence and character. I think you should be able to understand the world around you and understand who you are and your purpose and try to make the world a better place. I think that it has to be a mix of the skills, you know, memorizing the formulas, you know, understanding the world around you, but then also what to do with it.
And just to go off that, the idea that education, you have to balance the importance of memorizing the quadratic formula while simultaneously addressing social and political issues respectively. So children have both the know-how, general knowledge, and also kind of self-awareness and character, so they're able to develop their own opinions.
Yeah, I think that the purpose of education is to understand the world that you exist in and use that understanding as a means for creating change or even understanding yourself on a deeper level.
I believe the purpose is simply just to prepare the individual to be successful in the society that they exist in.
Critical thinking, learn how to live out your full potential so you can be independent, and everything else really flows from there.
The purpose of education is to prepare children for the real life and also make sure that they are literate.
So I think the purpose is to
Okay, let me let her do
raise the next generation of leaders. And when you think about what you want your leaders to be like, you want them to be knowledgeable and you want them to be compassionate. You want them to be self-aware. You want them to understand the best way to move forward, not just for themselves personally, but for their whole community.
So I'm going to talk about the whole panel real quick. They were some of the sweetest liberals I've ever met in my entire life. You could even tell by the way that they looked. They were just nice. They were nice. And that's rare for me to meet such nice liberals. They were that, like, even the guy, I mean, actually don't know how a lot of them vote. They're left leaning. Definitely didn't vote for Trump, but they were just nice people. I would say the only one that you could tell was kind of like, but she didn't come across as like that in on camera, because they edited out her moments that were like that, was the chubbier white one, the blonde lady. Shirt. Yeah, the red shirt. But the guy, the doctor he's a doctor, which is really impressive. Black guy, young, super sweet. The guy with the lipstick was just very cordial, and like we actually got along
very
really well.
Nice to me. Yeah, like he comes across very nice.
They did not bring in like a super blue-haired, I'm going to force my views on you teacher into this panel. They just didn't. And I think that was on purpose. And if you think about it, there was 3 actual teachers on the panel, or 4 of us. There was 4 of us that were still actively teaching. I was the only teacher on the right that was an actual teacher, because teachers on the right would not be would be canceled if they went on a panel like this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Shared their views. They would be fired. So if there was a teacher on the right on this panel that was like, there's only 2 genders and the rest is the delusion, they would have a really hard time keeping their job if they were a public educator.
Public school. Yeah.
As opposed to the trans teacher in the front, who they cut out the moment where I asked her if she claims her white privilege to her students. And she said, yes, she does. And then I shared that takes away from individual stories. That's putting, and she actually was really understanding on that, which was cool. They cut out that moment. But she doesn't have to worry about it.
You got to have some drama, Collie.
Yeah, she's a public school teacher, and she does not have to worry about her job, about losing her job for sharing her left-leaning views on this panel. So that's just something to point out. There's not a lot of teachers on the right that would feel comfortable. Okay, here we go. Let me
ask you a quick question.
Go ahead.
The gentleman on the front left, the guy in the black shirt.
It was only allowed. That was only had like 3 comments in the whole thing.
Yeah, he was so quiet. Number 1, but like I almost like I figured he was left leaning, because I always divide the panel in half, so I figured he was. But I feel like he was like really moderate, because some of the stuff that he said, I was like
moderate.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that actually, yeah, I'm on board with that. Like he didn't. But you didn't talk much. So I was like, okay, what's this guy's deal?
Yeah. He was definitely a moderate. And I do think this person has another good comment. I'm going to go ahead and show it. It says, do you think that Vice learned from the debate panel that had just Pearlie, Sydney, Watson, and Eli, the trans person? Vice got a lot of well-deserved backlash. Yeah, that was, and but they set up these panels beforehand. And we filmed them and got them done before. So maybe they edited it in a way that was a little better, because it was different. It didn't have all of like the us at the beginning sharing our, where it's like kind of a flashy video. But it was, hey, so Phil's here. Phil was on the panel. This is Phil. I'm going to put him up. Yeah. He was the black guy in dreadlocks that everyone is. You were pretty controversial, actually. I've been checking the comments.
You were.
Yeah. I don't think what you said was controversial, but like the left was just like, between a man and a woman, that is so insulting.
Yeah.
So, he was.
I don't know if Phil knows, but like, someone had said something about, the 62,000 a year isn't like, a lot of people don't make that. And I clarified what he said. I don't know if Phil knows that was me that was going back and forth with the comments, but I was just like, he just meant like, that's it doesn't take a rich person to be, yes, is it above poverty level? Okay, fair enough. But his point was that it didn't take someone that makes $1 million to be able to homeschool their kids. Like you can be kind of middle class and still accomplish it with, 7 kids. Like it's not even like he has like 1 or 2. Like he's got a massive family. So I don't know if Phil knew that was me, but that was me in the comments.
And I'm good. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Yeah, Q's been like going in and defending us, but I think it's kind of hard to keep up.
I can't keep up anymore.
And then, well, the homeschool thing, I didn't get to say this on, but I've always tell parents that homeschool is the best option if you can do it. If you can't do it, private school is the second best option. There's a lot of parents that aren't in a place where maybe they don't have the relationship with their child to homeschool. I've met a lot of parents like that. And that's why it's good to maybe have an online school, like my school, be the teacher. But I think when people think of homeschool, they think of like a parent like actively sitting down with the kid and doing everything. And there's a lot of curriculum. There's a lot of programs out there that support you, especially this last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think homeschooling of like the 70s, 80s, and 90s is very different than what it is now. And there's a lot of groups to socialize your kid. And so like one of the top comments is like, I was homeschooled and it was like the worst thing that ever happened to me. Yeah. And you know what? There's a lot of people that say that I went to high school and it was the worst time of my life. But we don't see those comments in the in there because that's more normal. I think they're FOMO. Homeschoolers have FOMO because they aren't doing the like main thing that the rest of society is doing. So they always have this, it would have been better if I was put in public school, like,
Well, and that might be true for like people that are maybe like and closer to our generation, like maybe late millennials or like early Gen Z or something. Like maybe for them that might be true because it was a little bit longer ago, but I think now in the advent of social media, like there's so many, like you said, groups. And I mean, we date through online. So why would you not be able to like socialize your kid through online groups? You know what I'm saying? It's just a whole different ballgame than it was like when we were in school.
And then to add to that, the socialization that happens in public school is not like the real world. So this whole like, you're gonna be ready for the real world because you went to high school is so retarded to me because it's not the real world. Like high school is like this weird time where you're with everyone who's the same age as you. And then you have these authority figures telling you what to do. And it's thousands of you. How many times have we been in rooms with thousands of other people? I mean, in a building with thousands of other people our same age with authority figures telling us what to do. That's not the real life world, guys. Like, and I actually think that homeschool kids, a lot of them are able to interact with adults in a more healthy way than our public school kids, especially this last 10 years. And there's public school kids who spend their whole day on social media and then they go and spend the rest of their day in public school with peers. And you get them around an adult and they're just like, I can't even put a sentence together, you know?
Yeah.
So this idea that putting your kids in public school is the way you socialize them. No, there's plenty of ways that you can socialize your kids without them in a public school.
Homeschool kids to me have always come off as much more mature. They're like less hyperactive and they're able to have more like cohesive conversations because they do, in fairness, like they do probably spend more time with adults than they do with kids. But again, I think if there's a fear of that, like missing out with that socialization of your same age group, like I think that's just an excuse and it's a lie and it's stupid because we have social media, you know, to help with that, or groups, or like there's homeschool apps, like there's 1,000,001 things you can use to make sure your kids are still connecting with other kids.
Exactly. I really like this comment. The real world is outside school. There are so many kids that don't know how to do basic skills, don't know how to chop wood, don't know how to plant a garden, don't know how to change a tire. They're overweight. They sure can log into a computer, but they can't, you know, do basic skills in life that will help them survive. And I think in the world we live in right now, we need that. Okay, so let's watch a little more, but this is awesome. I really appreciate everyone who's here checking out this live.
About who's doing the educating. Who should decide what's being taught?
Parents. I think that parents should have a huge say
Why
in
is
what's
that a
going on in the
question?
classroom because it's their kids, not ours. As a public school teacher 15 years, I was always aware that these are not my children. We have to make sure that we're respecting parents and their beliefs and their values.
I think the Constitution.
Okay, I just want to answer this question from JC real quick. DeSantis or Trump? And I think I should do a video on this. I'm still a Trump girl. Yeah, that's just me. But yeah, so parents, And it's funny that there's people in the comments that are just like, I don't know, there's too many parents out there that are crazy. Well, I'm sorry. Okay.
Hello.
But you trust them from when they're 0 to 5. You trust them every summer. You trust them after school. But yet that 6 hours when they're in school, we need to make sure that the government has control of our kids because these crazy parents are so terrible. And I'm not saying that there is some parents out there that aren't doing a very good job raising their kids. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
also a lot of schools and teachers that aren't doing a good job taking care of our kids. There's a lot of teachers, teacher education is 4 years. 4 years. I mean, not 4 years. You get a degree in whatever you want for your first 4 years. So it could be in indigenous basket weaving your first 4 years. And then it just takes 1 year to get your teacher degree. 1 year. That's it. So, and they're also lowering the standards for teachers. Biden just lowered the standards for teachers. You should be able to get a teach grant from the government. He took away the GPA requirement so we can have C average teachers. They're doing a terrible job at educating our kids. We have one of the lowest literacy rates out of all the first world nations in the country. I know this because I was a reading recovery teacher. I would get students coming in ninth grade who were reading at a kindergarten level or not even able to decode. And I would sit down with them and read with them, and I would ask them, have you ever had someone sit down with you and read to you? And they would say no. They've never had someone take the time to sit down and read to them in all their years of education and in public school education. So we're doing a bad job at teaching our kids. And this whole idea that parents are so much worse, but teachers are happy to say bye at 3:00 and all summer long. So if they're so bad, why is it so controversial to say that parents should be the main voice in what's happening in their own child's education?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's keep going.
Agrees with that.
Yes.
Here in America, ranging back to the early 1900s, plenty of Supreme Court cases have ruled in that favor that it is the parents' right ultimately to decide a child's education, medical needs, etc.
I would push back though and say that there does need to be collaboration, right?
No.
I completely respect your idea of it is
It's not communism.
our job as educators to put forth a belief in front of children, right? That includes not perpetuating parents' beliefs in the classroom as well. In my opinion, that would be keeping a non-biased viewpoint, simply presenting issues and then allowing kids to decide for themselves.
I would agree that I think it needs to be a collaborative effort. The way that we decide curriculum in Texas is that work groups comprised of community members, educators, parents, even in some cases students and public service officials come together to draft curriculum plans, and then it's ultimately decided on by our State Board of Education, which has a lot of kind of assistance from parents as well.
So this girl, she's a high school student. She's definitely super on board for all the leftist stuff. She's in Texas, which is kind of like a hot button state for all the CRT and everything like that. And I'm not saying that Texas is perfect in what they did with CRT.
No.
Because there were some administrators there that went a little too, for one, okay, it's kind of like sex ed for me right now. They're doing a bad job with a lot of sex ed in our country. And do we let it keep going, or do we just cut it and get it together? And I think that's what happened in Texas. All these woke teachers, and there's a lot of right-leaning people in Texas. All these woke teachers were presenting slavery in this like white man is so bad and you need to atone and you need to change, you little white kids, because it's your fault that this is happening. You're perpetuating your whiteness and you're, and you guys need to change and take a back seat and all this stuff. And so Texas is like, all right, y'all, I can't trust y'all with teaching slavery anymore. So, and they never really banned the teaching of slavery. All they said is that you can't do the teaching of slavery that causes mental anguish. So a lot of these woke teachers are like, well, if I can't do that, I'm just not going to teach it at all. And that's where she's getting a lot of her opinion right now. She's getting her opinion from, there's teachers that are like, our governor won't let me teach slavery, so I'm just not even going to do it at all. And they're left-leaning teachers. And so that's where she's getting a lot of her facts right now. I've seen them do their tantrums on Twitter about how they feel like they can't teach slavery anymore because they have to teach it in a way that won't hurt the child or whatever. Yeah, you do.
Which means like they're simply just asking you not to editorialize the lesson. Like just present the facts. That's it. Like you don't need to editorialize it. Like it's not necessary.
And teachers do it all the time. And now we live in a time where kids can record the teacher privately, which if you are a high schooler or a college student, please record your teachers, keep them accountable to what's going on and expose them because our schools are supposed to be politically neutral environments.
Mhm.
you know, and they're supposed to be racially neutral environments. Teachers, if you had a kid and you sent them to a neighbor's house and you were like, and the kid came back and was just like, the neighbor taught me about white privilege. You'd be like, what the hell? No.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going over to that house anymore.
You're not playing with Johnny anymore.
Yeah. But for some reason, the teacher adults are allowed to do this because they're the professionals, because they had one extra year of college after their indigenous basket weaving degree. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not okay. Like, anyways, I just want to share where her perspective came from. She's in Texas, which is like a hot button place. They found this girl, which was a really good one to have. And she's the type of girl that frightens me because she's very smart. And I think smart left-leaning people are, let's find a way to flip this girl, because we don't want her to be a future. Well, I don't want to compare her to AOC because AOC is not as smart, but
she's nuts.
Yeah.
Let me just say, can I just say too, I think what a lot of people on the left don't realize, when you go super extreme, it's like this rubber band effect, right? Like so it reverberates. So you're going to now have parents that are more conservative or more traditional, however you want to say it. And they're going to, almost out of a defensive position, because they're so worried about what you're going to teach their kids. I think what might even have the tendency of being like, okay, let's just not teach it at all, because I don't trust you to teach it properly. So I think you can actually get that dynamic on both sides for completely different reasons. But I think I've seen some interviews with some parents that are conservative, and they're just like, get rid of it all. And I'm just like, but I get where they're coming from, because it's almost like they're saying, okay, well, I think you're just going to do a bad job, or you're going to make my kid feel bad or whatever. So we just need to stop it altogether. So unfortunately, now it's like the kids are the ones that suffer, which is what irritates me the most. Like, we learned about slavery. I'm from Idaho. Okay. I am from like one of the whitest states in the country. I was raised as a white girl in one of the whitest states in the country. We learned about slavery. Like, it's always been taught, but what's happened now is it's super editorialized, which is just not necessary.
Yes.
So now we're in this mess that we're in, which
and
is
it's
horrible.
also, they're teaching a revisionist history to these kids. They're leaving out
1619.
And I'm going to go into that later when there's a quote where they butchered my statement and took away everything from the middle. But I'll go into that later.
That kind of format can be really effective, because it also empowers students to become involved in the fate of their education. As a student myself, I think that that's incredibly important, because our perspectives need to be heard as well.
The voices of parents need to be heard in that equation. But unfortunately, what we've seen recently is that parents' voices have been demonized in this process. You've seen parents who've criticized local school boards labeled terrorists simply for caring about the quality of their education that their child is receiving. These teachers are temporary caretakers. When they come back home, it's the parent who has to explain.
Okay, I love CJ, but he was like literally saying everything I wanted to say. And I was like, no, I don't have anything to say anymore. What am I going to say? Like, all the things I had saved up. But anyways, he's great.
This is this radical belief that was put in front of you. This was this idea that you've never been raised around, that parent now has to explain. And at the end of the day, that isn't just confined to a classroom. Now it's bleeding into their upbringing. And there's only one person responsible for their upbringing, and it's the parents. It's not the educator, it's not the teacher, it's their parents.
I like the idea of the collaboration, and obviously parents' voices belong at that table. I also like the emphasis on students having a say in this, and also other people adults that aren't parents. I'm invested in that too, even though I don't have children of my own. And I hear what you're saying about having to, like, parents needing to confront or address, I guess, like what kids are learning at school.
You can tell she's really into having her students love her. And that was something that I wasn't obsessed with. I wasn't like, I need my students to love me and to think I'm cool. No, I needed my students to get their reading level up. I needed my students to get better at English because I taught the English learners. And I needed my students to be able to read, write, and speak well in the real world. I don't need them to love me. And I think my students knew that about me. I was always like, I would always tell my students, we work hard, we play hard. We would have fun Fridays, but I wasn't there to be their friend or to be their confidant. That's just not my job.
Because you can still express to them that you care about them and demonstrate that you care about them, but it doesn't. It's almost
more like caring about their future instead of like, I need you. You're going to talk to me. Like if a student wanted to talk to me about their boyfriend or girlfriend, I would be like, you need to talk about this with your friend. Like, this is not an appropriate conversation to have with a teacher. And I think I came off as so professional. That only happened to me like once or twice, where a student in my 15 years of teaching, where they felt like they could come up to me and talk about their boy, but they were happy to talk about their future and to talk about, you know, like their plans. And I had my last year of teaching, even during the pandemic, I did not have, I think I had like 1 or 2 students fail. It was always for me, it was about my job was to make sure they know how to read, because I taught the low readers and I taught the English learners. That was my job, not to be their private confidant. Parents should be choosing who their child, if you want to let other adults into your child's life that are like mentors, that should be the parent's choice.
Yeah.
And this is what we say when we say grooming, because that's how it happens. These teachers have inappropriate relationships with their students, and they're talking about I've seen it firsthand. They're talking about their boyfriends, their girlfriends, and then pretty soon it's like, so what's going on with your sex life, and what's going on with your gender identity and your sexual orientation and your girlfriend? Yeah. Oh, you're trying girls and boys. Like, what? No. And like I said, if we had a neighbor that did that, if your kid went to a neighbor's house and was like, I was talking about sexual orientation and gender identity with the neighbor, you'd be like, you're not going over there again. So, yeah. So that's the vibe I got from this teacher. She was very sweet though. I
feel like she was open to hearing what other people were saying, which I liked about her. But yeah, she was people pleaser.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Giving kids the exposure to other ideas or other things that they wouldn't be exposed to otherwise is, I think, part of what's going to help raise the next generation of people that are able to look outside their own lived experience.
But I think that oftentimes those different ideas are presented in the classroom as a student as the only idea. When you're being taught that, there's this many genders or anything like this, where you haven't been exposed to that in your own household, it's being presented as like the end all be all, when it actually isn't. It's about educating and not indoctrinating. As long as that is presented as a counterpoint to, well, there's people who believe this, but there's also people who believe this, that's okay. The reality of it is that in most classrooms across the country, that isn't what's happening.
And to piggyback off of that, one side is labeled as a bigot, white supremacist, homophobic. There's a lot of parents in America that are Christian, or they believe in 2 genders, gender binary. And if you say that as a teacher, especially, you could be labeled as homophobic. So there isn't this unbiased classroom, because there's one side that can't really be, as loud as the other side without risk of, losing our jobs even.
But you two are kind of the ones that
Desmond here cracks me up. This next part,
let's let him say
the conflict of like, there is an indoctrination going on and only one side, it has this opinion and this side is not allowed to talk and we have to be quiet. When really you guys are actually the loudest in regards to this issue thus far. Right
now, yes.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the quiet. What I would say though is like,
they didn't let me, he just totally, that's not the kind. And then what I would say, so he's saying because we're loud in that room and we're talking about it in that room, that we're allowed to be in that, like that in the classroom. And I said, well, yeah. And then they're like, and they edited it as if I'm agreeing with him. That's not true. Like if you are a teacher in America and you say there is only 2 genders and the rest is a delusion, your job will be on the line. So he just wanted to point out, you guys are being so loud and saying stuff, but we're not allowed. Teachers in America are not allowed. I know a teacher right now. She's actually going viral. Jessica Tapia. She's on Instagram. She's great. She's going viral right now because she contacted me and was like, I got fired for hypotheticals. She's a Christian and she was fired for a hypothetical. She's a PE teacher. They knew she was Christian. They asked her if there was a biological male that transitioned to a female or is transitioning to a female, would you allow them in the girls' locker room to change? And she said no. It didn't even happen yet.
Wow.
It didn't even happen yet. And she was fired for that. So we're not allowed to speak. And he just completely dismissed my point and said, because you're speaking in this room, that's not true. And, and Vice edited this panel so much in the lipstick dude's favor. It's really annoying to me. He was very kind. He was very kind in his interaction, but so what? Your views are warped, dude. Okay.
Let me just say, so that's actually really interesting context, because when I heard him say that, the way that I interpreted what he said was that he was basically saying that conservative parents, with the whole conversation going on nationally right now, are loud. And when I heard that, I was like, well, the pushback is loud. Yes, like it's totally loud because you guys have gone off the freaking deep end. So yes, parents that are pushing back are now super loud. So that's actually it's interesting to know.
We weren't loud 10 years ago. It's become so bad, but it was also
you have to push back.
It was a slowly boiling pot, and now it's starting to boil over. I like this comment. JC, thank you for sharing this. He had a teacher who was a survivor from communist Romania, and she seemed more conservative than most teachers. And that is very survivors of communism, which we had teachers in my school who said that they were Marxist. They had like Che Guevara posters in their classroom. They said they were Marxist. They taught the kids about Marxism. So it's like really silly to me that we live in one of the most privileged countries in America. And now we have teachers in our public schools telling kids that communism is the way. So thank you for sharing that.
But they've never lived in it.
Yeah. The ones that have lived in it really know what it's like. And then the left will be like, but that's not pure communism. And then we act like this new generation is going to be able to bring in pure communism.
Yeah.
Gen Z is not going to be able to bring in pure communism.
It's always a moving goalpost. That's the thing. As soon as you bring up like a point to counter the whatever they're proposing or whatever, it's a moving goalpost. Like, oh gosh, this person had a point. Okay, well, let me move it over here now and invalidate your point. Like, it's so frustrating.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, let's watch a little bit more. And I just want to comment on his makeup. It lasted the whole time.
It looks really good.
Yeah. It's like a wax figure almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty. And it lasted. My makeup was like gone by the end. And I felt, we were sitting on these uncomfortable chairs. And I was like trying to suck in my stomach and stand up straight the whole, by the end, I'm just like, you can tell by my face. Cause I mean, I don't have like the nicest looking, like flat face. You know, it's not the nicest looking, but I can usually be like, you know, I can force a pleasant face. No, those chairs were like, that's my face. And so some people are like, yeah, the girl on the top right, the looks on her face. I'm like, yeah, that's because we were sitting on rocks for 3.5 hours, like in an uncomfortable studio.
And it was so funny just to like, so people kind of get like a personal anecdote here. So before you left for recording that morning in the hotel, we were like going over outfits, like, okay, what am I going to wear? And there was like 2, I think, that we're going back and forth. And you put on that jumpsuit and it was like, oh, this is like flexible. Like this will be good.
Comfortable. It felt like pajamas. That wasn't actually a dress. It was a jumpsuit. And I love jumpsuits. So that was great. All right. So
and it looked really good on camera. So
yeah, and it was comfortable. That was and didn't show pit stains because I was sweating. I'm a nervous sweater.
Do want to push away if possible, and I would love for you to hear this, right? Is that idea of someone sees me and they go, oh, you're one of those that teach that there's 72 different types of gender. Desmond Fambrini, he, him, gender fluid, bisexual. My students do not know this because it doesn't come out because I'm a learning specialist. And it's my job.
This dude has like 1 million followers on TikTok. My students do not know this. They don't know that and he's talking about his gender identity on TikTok all the time. So it's like, come on.
He might not lead with it, but it doesn't mean that they don't know that.
And it's like, it's pretty obvious in the way that you look. And he does an online school, I think, as well. And that's not as intimate. So you're not like, I'm sure if he had like a school that was a classroom, there'd be some clues in there as well. So, and I don't doubt that he's had private conversations with his students about gender identity and sexual orientation. So this came across as very ingenuous to me. I think Vice was like, yes, we got a dude in makeup that isn't pushing his gender identity. See all you conservatives that are so freaked out about all of this. Look at him. He's not like that. You guys are just chasing a boogeyman. Meanwhile, like every other day, there's some crazy teacher on TikTok who's just like forcing their views.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, so if he's truly not, say we give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, cool. You're not like introing yourself like that at the first day of school. Like, okay, fair enough. If you're not doing that, then I respect that. But I guarantee if a student asks him, he will be very upfront.
Oh, of course. But anyways, and like I said, they edited this video to make him a star. He already is a star on TikTok, 1 million followers. He was like bragging about that. Like, oh, when you get 1 million followers, you have like a personal person from TikTok that like helps you and blah, blah, blah. Anyways.
To educate and teach a curriculum, right? Now, if I'm asked directly by a parent or if there's confusion, oh, why do you wear makeup? Same reason why girls do, because it's fun for me.
How long do you take to get ready?
It doesn't need to be this very controversial, I'm going to mess with this child's upbringing. They're going to go home and they're going to turn into a gender fluid and they're going to think there's 72 genders.
I think that's a question you say you should go ask your parents about how they feel about that.
Well, so,
And
okay.
teachers are supposed to teach reading, math, science, the things that are actually going to make them contributing members of society. Answering a child's questions about whether or not men or women should be wearing makeup or not is, I don't think, within that realm.
Okay, so you said science, right? And so we're talking about a physical science, we're talking about human anatomy and biology here. So a child says, I thought boys could not wear makeup. I have an X and Y chromosome and I'm wearing makeup. I could factually answer that without indoctrinating with any opinion.
But it's in no way scientific, your answer to that question.
How is that not scientific?
I would say maybe cultural, or it's a perception or an opinion, but it's in no way scientific.
Anyone else? I am a chatty person, so I'm going to take a
I
pause,
cannot.
and I'm
This
going to
made me so mad.
So I just had one question for you, because
put
not
that
all
in of him, because there's people in the comments like, Desmond is so self-aware that he stopped himself from talking. At this point of the conversation, we had been talking about gender identity stuff for like 2 hours. And he was like dominating the conversation, and it was always going back to him. The poor white guy, he's had like one thing to say in that. And I think they gave him like one other moment, right? And then they edit in the part where he says, okay, guys, I'm going to stop talking because I'm, such a self-aware person, even though he was dominating the whole conversation. So that just really annoyed me that they edited that in when it was only been like 8 minutes on the video. But in real life, when we were doing this, we had been talking about this stuff for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And he was like the main person talking. And it was like, okay, like, dude. So anyways.
Well, he's the spokesperson, clearly.
Yeah.
homes are welcoming or open to conversation or safe. So how do we?
Okay. This whole idea that not all homes are safe or welcoming for these conversations. So if there is a student, let's scenario this. There's a student that goes to a teacher and they're like, I'm questioning my gender identity. I think I'm non-binary and I just don't feel like I'm comfortable talking to my parents about that. I feel unsafe. The teacher is a mandated reporter. If these parents are truly unsafe, and I'm not talking about a parent that might be upset about it. So what?
Right. Yeah.
There's parents there's conflict between teenagers and parents all the time. But if this student is truly unsafe and this teacher is not reporting this parent, but instead being the child's non-binary, gender fluid, transgender confidant, this is not right, America.
No.
And this whole idea that a child may not feel safe to come out to their parents, then if their parents are truly unsafe, if their parents are going to beat the child or hurt the child or emotionally abuse child in a way that's going to really damage them, then you're supposed to report the parent instead of just letting that child continue to have an inappropriate relationship with you.
Right.
That is so wrong of a teacher to just, it also puts the child against the parent, because then they're like, your parents are so misunderstanding. They don't get it. They're older. They've never heard of gender fluid and they're misunderstanding. So come talk to me.
Yeah.
It's really wrong.
I think that's the problem that I have with it, because what's happening with this gender conversation is that because of how it is being presented, like this is your identity. Like, so if anybody disagrees with you, it's like a personal attack on your very being. And it leaves no room for a parent or, someone who cares about you or whatever to say anything back. And at the end of the day, your parent is still supposed to be guiding you. And kids do dumb stuff all the time. Like if a kid started talking about getting a tattoo or, doing drugs, but we're not allowed to put the gender stuff in that same category because, it's my identity. It's who I am. Okay. Well, you didn't feel like that like 20 seconds ago. So why do I have to just go on board with this with no questions? It's so wrong. And I feel so bad for parents who it's almost like, I think some of these parents that I've seen, they're convincing themselves that they're okay with it because they know they really don't have another option. Like they're going to be the bad guy if they don't, that just sucks.
They also weaponize and say that your child will commit suicide if you don't affirm their gender.
Yep.
And here's the thing, even in the most inclusive society, go to some of these super woke, super left-leaning areas, super left-leaning countries, there's still a higher suicide rate for LGBTQ teens. For one, our teens are committing suicide 3 times the rate from the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so we don't even know if it's truly has to do with their gender identity or if it's maybe something else, but if the child was struggling with gender identity, they're going to say, oh, it was because of gender identity that kid's committed suicide, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we already have an alarming rate of teens committing suicide since the 1960s. Now let's think about the 1960s. Did we have gender affirming teachers and non-binary and gender fluid when our kids were committing suicide at 3 times less than rate than now? We did not have any of that back then. So there's something else going on with our teens. And there's also this whole, like I said, they could be in the most affirming environment possible and they still will have a higher rate than another teen because they're dealing with so much self-hate. And that goes back to partly my Christian beliefs, but also just a lot of, especially the trans kids, they're hating their own body. And especially the girls, they're going, I don't look good as a female. I don't like the way because it's all about looks. When you talk to these trans kids, it's all about looks. You know, even if you feel like a man inside, you could look like a girl outside. So what? But maybe make that normal, right? Like, but no, they have to look like it, you know? And so they're obsessed with it and they're angry at their bodies. And it's sad. And there's not very much you could do to help them with that. They're just going to be angry because they're not going to ever be that.
Yeah. Well, and let's be honest, like you and I have both been girls growing up in adolescence and pubescent girls. Like being I'm not saying that dudes don't have their own struggle. They do. Girls though, like there is a really different thing that happens with puberty with girls. Like, you know, and I think society puts so much pressure on girls physically, you know, and girls are much harder on each other. Like girls are ruthless to each other.
Awful.
So you have all of these things going on. Your hormones are changing, like you're starting your period, like all these things are happening. You're just generally speaking, you're very uncomfortable with your body as a growing up girl. It just is what it is. So if you are now surrounded by kind of this gender ideology who's telling you like, hey, if you're uncomfortable with your body, just change it. And so it's very tempting to be like, okay, well, this all sucks. I don't like this. Every girl for all of history has been like, this sucks. I don't like this. But we were never like coached to okay, well, you know, just let's do something different because it's uncomfortable like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And also kids need to learn how to cope more.
Yeah.
Because life is not easy, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do we balance that?
I think that what we're saying is that there's certain conversations that are not to be had with a teacher. And I think that the argument that a lot of people on the right and conservatives are making is that we just don't feel as if actors of the state should be having conversations that are taxpayer funding conversations with children about conversations that have not come up in their own households. And to that point, if you can't talk about God in the classroom, why can we talk about every gender under the sun, right? I think that's the conundrum that we find ourselves in. If we are banning those conversations, we've banned those a long time ago, then how can we have these conversations just because they belong to a different side of the political aisle?
So I think we actually talk about God in the classroom all the time, right?
Yeah.
Who's taught religion? Who's taught world religions? Who's taught like history in the way that, you know, Puritans, and that's okay because God is part of the fabric of history and whatever else.
We talk about it from a development perspective. This is how Christianity originated. This is how Islam originated. We don't talk about like, this is what this gender is, and this is if you feel this way, then there's gender affirmation therapy, all those things.
I think you actually bring up a really good parallel of like, I feel comfortable and I feel like it is okay to talk about identity issues the same way we talk about God. Not indoctrinating anyone, not telling this is what you have to be or you have to believe, but saying this is something that some people believe.
Nah.
But in the sense of gender identity, I don't see that.
What do you think of that, Q?
No, because at the end of the day, it's not a black or white truth. It's just, it's this current climate and these current kids, right? It's all about how I feel and emotions. And it's so like I don't want to be too like Bible based in this conversation, but like the Bible tells us like your heart is deceitfully like it's wicked and deceitful. And like, and so if we're constantly like following our heart, like all this hippie crap, like it's just dangerous. Like we're completely erasing logic and facts and critical thinking from our conversations right now. And it's all about fluid truth that changes from day to day. It's nuts.
So ready for a fun fact? I'm totally, and if there's leftists that are going to watch it, they're going to be like, so for 2 weeks when I was in high school, I thought I was a lesbian. And I was very overweight as a high school student, and I wasn't considered attractive. I didn't have very good self-care. My mom didn't make us do our laundry as kids, and she didn't do our laundry. So I was wearing a lot of the same clothes over again. So I was kind of smelly, and I just felt like guys would never love me, and I will never be with a guy. And then there was this girl that liked me, and I was like, oh, wow, someone actually likes me, and in that way, you're dealing with all these feelings. You're going through puberty, and you're becoming, you're starting to get, feelings for people. And now I look back, I'm like, I love men. Men are beautiful and sexy and handsome, especially men that take care of their kids. And my husband is like, just makes me so happy, right? But for that 2 weeks, I was like, maybe I'm a lesbian, because I like that this girl likes me. And I think that happens a lot. But I also had a Christian background, and it didn't feel right for me. It felt funky. It felt, the thoughts that I was having felt yucky. And I didn't like it. And I took it to God, and I said, God, like, I've always been a prayer, no matter how rebellious I have become in my life, doing drugs, crazy, whatever. I've done a lot. I have always prayed, because I don't know how. I need to talk to God. I just do. And I love that he loves me for who I am, no matter what stage I'm in, no matter how stupid I'm being, or no matter how sinful my thoughts are. He's there for me. And I brought it to God, and, pretty soon I actually started losing weight and getting cute. And then guys started liking me. And I was like, woohoo, boys, you know what I'm saying? Like, that girl desire went away. Like, as soon as men started giving me some attention, because that girl, that's all I wanted, was to be desired. And I think that happens a lot for our girls, is they feel the need to be desired and to be loved. And especially our, girls that don't look like the perfect girl on campus, because we have teenage girls. There are some perfect ones out there, right? I mean, they're just like beautiful. And then you're just, like,
I remember this line in the movie Never Been Kissed, where she's like recapping like her experience with the students. She's like, there's always going to be those girls who look like the most beautiful women you've ever seen up close. And it's like, we can all relate to that, because we all have those girls in our school that we're like, what the hell?
So pretty. And that's the thing, is we're allowed to admire girls like that, but men aren't. Men, if they were like, oh my gosh, I think he's so handsome. Oh, you're gay. You know what I'm saying? So there's not all that nuance with all of it. Let's keep going.
Parallel. How is that making someone more literate, more successful?
What I hear you saying is that learning about different gender identities does not make somebody a more considerate, well-rounded person. But learning about different religions does make you a more considerate, well-rounded person.
I'm saying that is a part of history. I don't understand where gender identity falls within what we should be teaching.
Religious history and God comes into play in terms of history. Cool. But don't gay people and trans people too? It's not like I'm the first transgender person to ever walk this earth. Like, there are trans people that were, and gay people who were part of major movements in this country, like from the civil rights movement to the feminist movement to, obviously Stonewall. Like, isn't that part of history too?
So this is interesting. This whole so there's a difference between teaching history of gay people and gay movements that they're trying to add into history right now. And they're trying to actually link it with the civil rights, which is annoying. So like Black oppression is now the same as like gay oppression. But there's a difference. It's
really smart how they're doing that.
Yeah, there's a difference between teaching history but then what I'm really annoyed about is when they teach history and there's like a gay person that's part of the historical time, they point out that they're gay. Are they doing that with straight people? Are they making sure, hey guys, but it's like this, it's like, and also this person was homosexual,
Yeah.
And
now,
then,
if their sexual identity had like an influence on that fact alone, influenced the situation, okay, cool. But otherwise, it's completely irrelevant. Like, who even cares?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And then, And then the other thing is that, okay, when they mention gay history, it's always Stonewall, Stonewall, Stonewall. And then what else? What else?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, you can teach them about that, sure. But there really isn't much to like, there hasn't been really a lot that they've done collectively together as a people, because it's sex life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really something that is like super, you know, there's a big movement of people who are into, you know, certain types of sex stuff, and that's what they did together, right? It's just not. And so it's just an excuse for them to add more talk about it into lessons and to make
because
kids.
The purpose is to just desensitize the kids to it and normalize it, which, you know, I really do try to put myself in other people's shoes. I really, really, really do. I try to, like, even though my perspective on the world, I see it through a Christian lens. I don't have another way I can see it, but I really do try to be like sympathetic and empathetic, and I try to put myself in another person's shoes. So like, I can get what they're saying in terms of like, well, we can't just normalize straightness. If I was, in a hypothetical, let's say I was, you know, part of that demographic of people, like, I can see where they're coming from that perspective, but at the same time, it's like, but it's not normal. And I know that's like not popular to say. Like, I get it. That's not the popular thing or the right thing to say. I understand that, but it's not, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not true. I'm sorry.
And I actually think that people that were part of that community like 20 years ago and 30 years ago were okay with that. They were like, yeah, we're different. You know,
Correct.
We're different. But now queer theory has come out, and queer theory is like, we're all queer. We all have these weird things. And actually, it's the normies that are the ones that are crazy.
Right.
It's the normies that are ones that have been brainwashed by the patriarchy to think that marriage and that between a man and a woman, it's patriarchal concept. If that's actually, they're the weird ones. We're the ones that are the normal ones. So that's this whole new, it's this like, can we call them neo-gay or neo-LGBTQ? Because that's what they are.
Yeah.
Because the people 20 years ago were like, yeah, we're different. You know, we're different.
But it's the advent of this whole Marxist theory package. Like, it's all coming from the same place. Gender theory, race theory. It's all the same thing. And people don't see it. Like, because I know a lot of my Christian friends, they don't get on board with the LGBTQ stuff, but they're totally on board with like all the race essentialism. And I'm like, you guys, it's literally coming from the exact same place. Like, I wish you could see it. It's all Marxist connected. Like, it's all the same package, just different branches.
Absolutely. And it's all to collapse society.
Yeah.
And the idea that media isn't influencing this is, and that's a whole other conversation. We should save this because we got to go back, but we should definitely do this. You know, I'm loving doing this with my friend Q because she's one of my best friends and she actually moved away. So it's kind of a chance for us to see each other and talk. And also it's just nice to bounce off someone, because I tried making this by myself, a reaction video, and I got bored. I was like, I cannot talk into a camera watching this annoying Vice video for you guys for 40 minutes. So, and we're actually going to only do the half of this. So as soon as we get to 20 minutes, we're going to finish it, and then we'll do a part 2 another time. But yeah, I'm seeing all the comments, some great things being said. Thank you so much for being here. And it will be posted, the full thing, after it gets done. And I'm trying out StreamYard for the first time. How's the audio and everything for everyone? Just let me know in the comments.
Let's just take a step back. So just show of hands. Who here thinks public school is the best option for kids? Okay. And who thinks private school is the best option for kids? Cool. Who thinks homeschool is the best option for kids? And then some of you guys didn't raise your hands at all.
It's so challenging to pick one right answer for that, because essentially what you're asking is, who do you trust the most with your children? Who do you trust to give them the cultural values that I have, and then fill in the gaps where I don't necessarily know the answer, but I trust that they're experts and are going to give my children the attention that they need in order to develop so that they can be a better version of themselves.
If I had to choose one, it's public school. It is the best tool we have to give everybody a chance at a good ed.
I agree with his statement.
I do too.
Yeah, it should be the parent's choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if it could be them, it could be someone else, but it should be the parent's choice.
education, no matter where you come from, how much money you have. Public schools, where not everybody thinks the same and people are coming from all walks of life, is a good
I'm sorry, but public school is like where everyone thinks the same. Like these teenagers are the most homogeneous, like they have their little friend groups and they're all like wearing the same type of outfits and they're all into the same kind of things and they all love the same music. And it's not really an environment that is like, you're going to get diverse perspectives. And in fact, and I mentioned this in the video later on, our blue states have some of the most segregated schools in America. So she's just coming from, she's basically saying things people want to hear. The people on the blue side want to hear, and they'll be like, yes, sister, you're so right.
And I think she probably truly believes it.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
totally.
So I think she's being honest. She truly believes it, but yeah, it's just totally what they want to hear.
Where you can learn critical thinking skills and learn how to be a good community member, because not everybody looks like you or thinks like you.
Oh, you're shaking your head.
Well, first of all, our schools are more segregated ever than our public schools, especially in blue states. New York and California have the most segregated schools. And
they hate this point, but it's just true.
It's true.
New York and California have the most segregated schools in America. Blue states, deep blue, not just flip back and forth blue states. These are deep blue states. They have the most segregated schools. So if you're going to say that our schools are where you're going to get diverse perspectives, the blue states are the ones that are actually behind on that. And it is actually more segregated than it was during the Jim Crow South in those blue states, in some of those schools.
But here's the thing, Collie, they're actually, see, this is the thing. They say they want the diverse, it's almost kind of that same thing you see with like, this is why they don't like Black conservatives, right? Because they want the diversity until it comes to like stuff they don't agree with. So they're actually okay with that. They're totally fine of no diversity of thought as long as it's the thought that they agree with. They want the other people to be exposed to theirs and get that diversity, but they don't want it reciprocated.
Yeah. I mean, if I was really outspoken on my conservative beliefs as a public school teacher, leftist parents would be so mad. They would pull their kids from my class in a second. If I was like, yeah, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman and nothing else. I believe that there's only two genders, and I voted for Trump. Left-leaning parents would be like, nope, sorry, you're not going to be in her class. I don't trust you, right?
Which they have a right to do that. Fair enough, but don't get mad if we do it.
Yeah, exactly.
On top of that, we are in a place where our public schools are not safe, especially the last 20 years. And I just don't see why sending our kids to these environments where it's unsafe. We also used to be, because I used to be on the left, we used to be against the institutionalization of our children. These kids are being institutionalized, having these places where there's 2,000, 3,000 kids. I'm okay with public school, but the problem with it is that it's become an environment where it's almost like the school to prison pipeline. We used to talk about that in the 90s. We're not talking about that anymore. And I think that's something that parents need to wake up about, and America needs to wake up about, the institutionalization of our children.
So I talk about.
Okay.
I think we need to do a whole video just on that topic.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I don't even remember what I said. I have such a bad memory. I just listened to that. I was thinking about something else. Okay. I said institutionalization of our schools, but I said something else right before that.
Well, you're talking about segregation and then institutionalization of schools.
There was something in between that.
Gosh, because I was focusing on the school to prison pipeline and I forgot.
Okay, so yeah, and that is something that the left used to be all about. Like our kids are being institutionalized.
The left. Yeah.
And our kids are, and I remember that because I was on that side. And now they just don't even care. Now they're like, public school is the best place for them. And I don't really know what I want to say right there. So let's just keep watching.
The Rage Against the Machine people have become the machine. Like it's super interesting. Yeah.
About school to prison pipeline all day, every day. And I hear what you're saying, that it's terrible that there are parents who are.
And then this teacher says, I talk about the school to prison pipeline all day, every day. So that means she's doing her CRT stuff. Because I'm sure.
Which is funny because it's their policies that do it. Like, it's like such a blind spot for them. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's crazy.
sending their kids to schools that are not safe. However, what about the parents that don't have a choice? Like, I'm thinking about like the most marginalized community when I said public schools here, because I agree with you. The public schools have a lot of work to do to become the safe places where our kids are not in institutions where they're ignored or not giving the services they need. And also, for the people that don't have a choice and that is the only option their kids have, I just believe that's worth fighting for. That's why I said
absolutely. I'm a big advocate for school choice.
School choice. Why don't we just show of hands? Who believes in school choice?
Can you just specify like what do you mean by
So that's where parents can apply the money that they pay to taxes. They get vouchers and they can put that into any school that they want. It's very popular in red states right now. And a lot of blue states are against it, especially teachers unions are against it because it's taking money away from the public schools and creating more of a competitive market.
Right. That's why I wouldn't raise my hand.
Yeah.
Sometimes with school choice, it gets a little bit tricky, right? I had my first class had the first day I had 25 students by day.
Totally parody this guy. Like, can I make a satire?
Can I just say though, like he's the type of guy that I would have
almost.
I would have loved to have him as a coworker though, like because I think he's actually really like cute. And
oh no, he would drive me nuts after like 2 seconds. But I feel like I could totally do a satire character of him. Like it would be, I could do the makeup, the lipstick.
He seems so sweet.
That's the scary one, Scott. That's the scary ones.
I know.
Because he's like appealing and so kind, and he's getting a lot of attention. He has 1 million followers on TikTok. It's the you know, Dylan Mulvaney seems sweet, right?
No,
like,
Dylan Mulvaney seems like a jerk to me. Like,
well, I mean, in the brand that they're going for, it's kind of like it's like Candace of Full House or whatever cheesiness, but trans. You know what I'm saying? Like, hi, look at my little bow and my little purse. You know, like it's. I don't know. It's a bizarre world we live in right now. But anyways,
yeah.
I think I would do a great parody of
Me too. I had 19 because 6 parents switched out of the class because they saw me and they were like, "There's no freaking way." Before I even got a word in.
As a parent, I would want to know, like.
So he's upset that 6 parents saw him and was like, "Nope, don't want you teaching my kids." And
I would do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you not think that that is okay or they're right to withdraw when they see you? Because ultimately, you're probably an excellent educator.
I appreciate that.
I have no doubt about that. But I think we get into muddy waters when we start trying to take that choice away from the parent.
Do I think that it is okay for a parent to see me and go, not around my kid? No, I don't think that's okay. I feel like that's
parents would do that, conservatives all the time.
I was just about to say the same thing.
If they were like, saw me in a Trump hat or saw some like white guy with a Trump hat and a beer belly, they'd be like, I don't want you hanging out with him. Like,
yeah.
You know,
see, the frustrating part of this, like these two sides is that with the left, you can just present as he does. And we already know your political leaning 9 times out of 10. Some people surprise me that I come across on TikTok. So I'm like, wow, that's a conservative. Like, I'm shocked. But most of the time you can tell, right? With conservatives, like, unless you're throwing up a MAGA poster or have like,
American
you know,
now.
Or like Second Amendment, you know, on the wall, you really can't just tell by presentation. So it is, and you're not allowed to put that stuff up in classrooms, which seems unfair since BLM and pride flags can go up. That's a whole nother conversation. But it's just, it is much easier, I think, generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, to see someone and know that they're on the left.
Yeah.
Just an observation.
And there's a lot of parents out there that are like, boys don't wear makeup.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? They're allowed to have that belief. This is America. If you think that it's okay for boys to wear makeup, full face like that, bright lipstick, whatever, that's your right as a parent in America. You can have your little boy wear tutus and stuff. But if you're a parent that's like, boys don't wear makeup, boys don't put on tutus, boys don't wear makeup, that's their right as a parent to do that. And now it's becoming so normalized. And this, I feel so sorry for parents right now, because now it's to the point where if you say that to a child 30 years ago, that was totally fine. That was totally fine. That was like normal, you know, you don't do that. Now it's to the point where we see it everywhere, where it's like the kid's like, but yeah, daddy, boys do wear makeup and you're oppressing me. You know, like it's
again, it's all about the sensitization. That's all that it is. It's like you see it enough and it becomes normal. I mean, think about like what gay relationships we see on TV. They started with women because it's easier to swallow. It's much more palatable with two women because women are soft and pretty and all this stuff. You start with women and you get people used to it, and then you move on and you do the next thing. And that is exactly what's happened. And now if you don't see it on TV, it's very weird. And then you have people like Candace Cameron, who's getting marginalized and like thrown off the deep end by all these crazy people because she doesn't even want to be part. She just says, you know what? You guys are going to do what you do, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to shut down your network. I'm just going to leave and go over here where they don't portray those kinds of relationships. And that's her right to do that. And she got completely obliterated. And it's just ridiculous.
But so be it. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
Like, it's just going to get worse. And we're just going to become more
polarized.
And there's going to be a lot of kids that are going to rebel against this. And I'm seeing it already in Gen Z. Either they're totally sold out on leftism, getting all into it, changing their pronouns, or they're like, my generation is full of freaks. And I've met them. I love those Gen Zers. They're awesome. I love you guys. You guys are, and they're immunized because they see how crazy it is. And they're like,
well, they're being raised by us, our generation.
Yeah. They don't want any part of that craziness. They're just over it. And it's being forced on them and they're going to rebel.
Yeah. Really crossing the line because you are, for lack of better words, discriminating against me openly. That's like seeing a Black teacher and being like,
okay, this is going to be controversial, I think, but I don't think that LGBTQ should be a protected class. I don't think your sex life and who you prefer to be with should be protected. A protected class in terms of like hate crime type stuff. Like, how is that? Because so then when something happens to someone who's, on that, doing all that, it could be painted as it's because they were LGBTQ.
Which is what's happening right now with race.
Yeah. Honestly, if they were less obnoxious about it, if they were less like parading it in our faces, like parading your sexuality, which is like, keep it in the bedroom. We don't need you showing it off for a month with parades on the street. Keep it in the bedroom. But this idea that it needs to be a protected class of who you have sex with is just, so he's saying that's discrimination. That's discrimination because he's used to being in a protected class for his sex life, which is just weird. We're just living in some crazy times.
This is why I like old school, like homosexual people, because they were just trying to live their lives. And generally speaking, like even as a Christian, like I recognize I live in a world that's not Christian, right? So I know there's going to be people around me who aren't Christians, and the Lord has blessed me with a fair amount of tolerance, and I do really love people. So I try to get along with everybody, regardless of if you do things that I like or not. I really, really do. And so it's one thing to like just live your life, but the problem is that right now with like the flamboyant group of like gay people, it becomes actually kind of like vile and really
in your face,
very sexual.
We're just gonna rub it in your face. And that's why
too much.
That's why you'll notice these books that we're banning from schools, they don't portray heterosexual sex in a graphic way. It's only portraying homosexual sex in a graphic way to these kids.
And we're not saying either one is fine.
No, none of them should happen, right?
No.
But it's like, why is it only that side? And then that side's arguing to keep these books in the class. I mean, these are things, I have the screenshots and the books and I know what they look like and I've seen them in the schools, but I can't make videos on it because I know they'll get demonetized and taken down because they're so graphic. And I also don't really like spreading it, but you can look them up. Anyways, it's the parading, it's the putting it in kids' faces, it's the highlighting it, and it's sexuality, which is something that's very private and should remain private. I don't want to live in a society where people are just gay or not doing it on the streets, and that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed.
Yep.
I know that happens during some pride parades.
It is the same.
It's the truth.
It is the same.
It's still a right of the parent to make that decision as to whether or not they want their child to learn from you.
Okay.
Like it's still that parent's right. Like you can disagree with their motivations, their motives, their ideas,
Would you say
but it's still their child.
This started around school choice. Even if you want to decide on a different learning environment for your kid, the people that do not have the option to send their child to a different place, the bar should not be so low. And that's my concern with school choice, is that sometimes people think that if everyone flees to the suburbs, who is teaching in these schools where everyone has decided they don't want their tax dollars going to? And that's one of the big concerns. With funding of education being the way that it's set up, it essentially makes it so that the people that are stuck with these as their options don't end up with as good a school. And everyone deserves to have their kid go to a good school.
Well, if there's school choice, they won't be stuck with those options. They can have other options. That's the whole point of that. Also, it is the school district's job to appropriately use those budgets. Most of the budget in the schools aren't going to the teachers. We got cafeteria workers, janitors, all of these people that are getting paid.
It used to be 9 out of 10 people that were employees of schools and districts were teachers. Now it's 50-50.
Yes.
So there is some mismanagement of funds in this country. We actually fund our kids really well.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly.
Too many administrators.
Just to go back a little bit to like when you guys are raising your hands about the different choices, you raised your hand for homeschooling. Can you talk us through like why do you think homeschooling is the best option?
Well, if we look at the history of this country, a lot of people were homeschooled. A lot of our founders were homeschooled. Like they only went to school till 3rd grade, a lot of them. And I think what has happened is parents have decided that the government is going to do a better job at raising their children than themselves. We have also come to a place where school is taking up the majority of our day. And we have this mistrust of parents that they can't educate their own children. And I think that that's wrong. I think that a lot of parents, and if you look at homeschool data, like my friend Phil right here, he's got 7 kids and he's homeschooling them all. And actually homeschool kids are turning out really well.
I think you bring up a lot of very valid points, but I have to say, and I just want your opinion on this, I would never homeschool my own kids. And I want my kids to be smarter than me, than I ever was. How am I going to have a child that is smarter and does better than I do if I'm their only teacher?
You grow alongside your child.
Okay.
I think as a teacher, I feel like I've learned the most in my life as a teacher, like more so than in college. And, so parents becoming teachers is actually good for them as well.
Okay.
And even in the public schools, a lot of teachers are relying on the lesson plans. But speaking from experience, I got to give the credit where it's due. My wife does the homeschooling in it, and I've watched that process of her learning alongside, to make sure when they ask these questions, I'm getting knowledge on the material as well, so I can help you get through it. Nothing replaces that value, that bonding time that she gets to have with the kids.
I taught high.
So this goes back. I mean, this could be a whole nother video, but
yeah,
women, I think what's happened is that women went back into the workforce. So it's really hard to homeschool because it's hard to survive on one income right now in this country. Just is. And 2 incomes is a lot better. It's a lot more comfortable. And then, so we have decided, and if you go into the origins of our educational system in America, it's actually the origins of public education is really bad.
And really bad.
Yeah, and I should do a whole video on that because it is there to indoctrinate kids. It is there to make sure that they're going to be good little indoctrinated Americans for these creepy globalists and all of their weird plans. And it was started with not good intentions, public education.
Yeah.
So homeschool is just a whole long conversation. I think that it's something that 10 years ago, I may not have been as big of a fan of homeschooling as I am now, but as someone who has been in public schools for 15 years and seeing what's happening, I would never put my child in a public school because it's just not safe for them. They hide so much of what is going on in our schools. They hide it from the parents. If they gave you a report for every time a child brings a weapon on campus, especially in middle school and high school, you would be getting an email every week. You'd be getting an email like, because they don't do that. They don't tell you when children they just quietly expel them or suspend them.
Yeah.
Or if you got a report on how many there was this many suspensions this week for this, I think the majority of parents would pull their kids like that. They'd be like, oh, this is so unsafe. What the heck? Again, talking about an unnatural environment. How many times does someone bring a weapon to their job or have a fight in their job or have someone get hurt in the bathroom in their job like they do on these schools? But they hide it from parents. They don't give you guys weekly reports of everything that happens in the school. And we had a kid in my district, at least every week bringing a weapon on campus or having some sort of crazy fight on campus or something like that. And so our schools they're not safe. Private schools are better in terms of safety, but a lot of them are going super woke. I think that if you're a parent that has to work and you have to survive and you don't have a way to homeschool your child, private school's a good option. Homeschooling, though, is you're getting your child at the best time of the day. Instead of getting them at the end of the day when they're exhausted from having to be in these unnatural environments and sitting all day listening, which is what they have to do most of the time, is sit all day in these classrooms. And you're getting them at their worst. You're getting them after everyone's burnt out and worked these long days. And then and I know many parents that spend less time with their child than their teacher does.
Yeah.
So homeschooling takes all that away. And on top of that, not half of what we do in schools is fluff. You can get it done in 3 hours. Like my online school, you guys can get if your child is motivated and you are motivating your child through it, you can get what you need to get done in 3 hours, because the rest of it is fluff. There's a lot of fillers that teachers do. I did it, filler worksheets but the core of what a child needs to do to become a literate student and subjects like science and math, and you can also break it up for what that child needs. Like, let's say they're really sharp in math and they only need like a half hour a day in math. So, but they're really struggling in their reading. So they need an hour and a half to focus on reading, or you want to just take a break from that and just focus on writing. That's what you have, the flexibility. You can really tailor it to your child.
Yeah.
And, but you do have to be a parent that is, not necessarily, you don't need to have like a college education or anything, because there's great curriculums out there. There's schools that support you like mine. There's a lot that you can do to support yourself to homeschool. You just need to be able to have the time to do it,
And I feel like you can enrich them so differently. Like, for example, I have a girlfriend that homeschools. She lives about an hour north of Atlanta, and she had always desired to homeschool her kids, and they just couldn't make it work. She has a big job, her husband has a big job, and then COVID happened. And now they're both working remote full time, and now they're homeschooling their children, and they love it so much, because guess what? If it's science day, they take their kids to like the aquarium and they use that as science day or science lesson or whatever. And like they have their kids like write plays for writing. And so they get to do such a different thing. And I get it. You can't do that with a big class. You just can't. It's not possible. So it gives kids such a different school experience that I think, it's not to say that kids can't still be productive members of society without that. I think that they can, clearly. But what a great opportunity to be able to experience that in your school, life growing up as a kid. Like, how cool is that? I would love that.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice. And to have the freedom, and also fun stuff is less crowded during when all the people are still in school, and you guys get to go do stuff that they're not going to be a bunch of crowds.
Yeah. She was like, there was like 4 people in the aquarium. Like, no one was there.
Yeah. I have a comment here where it says, I'm scared. I'm not very organized. And that's one thing about raising your child is it's a time for you to grow as a person as well. And I don't think there's a lot of teachers, I met them, that have the most disorganized classrooms, and they're still teaching. So you don't necessarily, and I think there's a lot of homeschool moms out there that are like A+ homeschool moms, and it makes you feel like you're kind of inadequate.
They're the ones that are on Instagram. Don't make them let you think that that's everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many resources out there to support you. I mean, my school is completely like my K-12 program. You don't have to do anything except make sure your kid's logging on. Like, we provide the books, we provide everything. Just make sure they log on and get that done. But also, like I said, it's just a chance for you to grow as a person, which I think we should all be doing. We should all be lifelong learners. But I want to get to half of this, and then we're going to log off, because we could talk. But this is a lot. There's a lot of really good stuff that's going on in education, and I think we need to touch on it. But I'm also seeing viewers drop.
Okay.
We had about 60 average. Now it's going down to 40. And I feel you. This is long.
I school for 6 years, and I quit, and I'm a stay-at-home mom with my own kids. So we're a one-income family. We're lucky enough to be able to live off of my husband's salary. Would you say that most homeschool families have one parent working?
I do think the statistics show that is the case.
It's like the only way to do it well.
Pretty much. And, another misconception, though, is that they think it's a matter.
You can have a mom working from home. A lot of them do it.
It's true.
I know a lot of moms working from home doing like hustle, working their little butts off on their online businesses so they can have another source of income, but also homeschooling their kids.
Yeah. And even some traditional jobs are, not all of them, in fairness. Like if you're taking calls with customers, you can't have your kids home. Like that's fair. But a lot of people do like project management type work or stuff that's like you're not client facing, and your kids can be home. Like if you're not like taking calls or like have to be at certain things at certain times, like there's a lot of people doing that right now, especially post-COVID. Like that's more normal than it ever has been before. So you're right. I think there's more opportunity now than there was even 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Of income and homeschool families have to be rich and et cetera. And I think the average homeschool family makes like $65K. So the reality is they're scaling back and making sacrifices for this lifestyle because they value what is coming out of it.
So let's just say that for the people that homeschool isn't an option, what is for so many people it's not. I do not think that school choice is the way to go about that, which I know is a lot of people's answer to that.
Can we just get Sean in here?
She had
What's
to,
your
Sean.
School choice gives people an exit ramp. You get to
he
send
had
your kid to a school that best fits what you think is best for their development. At the end of the day, it's kitchen table conversations about we've worked hard to raise a family. We want to spend our money in a way that best fits our child, best fits our family. And when you don't have school choice, you do make those trade-offs. There are real consequences there.
The school is considered one of those shared spaces, one of those last kind of shared spaces where you might bump into someone who maybe comes from a different background than you, has a different ideology than you. What do you lose if you homeschool and then you're not?
What is she even saying?
Well, that's like work and society, like literally every day.
Okay, so I walked into this I'll end with this. I walked into this Vice panel. First of all, they required us to get the COVID vaccine. I didn't get it, of course. I had to apply for a religious exemption. I wrote a very scathing religious exemption. I was like, I am not going to inject fetal cells in my body, right? I'm just like, you guys are nuts. And then they required us to take a COVID test when we got there and to wear a mask until we start filming together. I didn't wear the mask. I just sat away from people and I just held it. And if they were going to get weird about that, then I was just going to be like, you guys are just going to have to deal with it or have me off the panel, right? So I was just like holding it, which apparently was good enough for them at this point because this was 6 months ago. Vice is all of the people that work there. The producer lady had on 2 masks the whole time. I don't know how they breathe, but they are in such a bubble in their work environment. I don't doubt that if there was a way for me to apply to Vice or whatever, and it made it clear that they looked me up, they would be like, nope, checking her, not hiring her. She's on the right.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about schools being like the last place that there's like all of these, it's not, first of all, that's not true. And secondly, she shouldn't even be the one to talk about that because she put herself in an environment where she's literally in a bubble, purposely in a bubble. There's a lot of things in this country that we do. There's a lot of jobs out there that aren't Vice, that have people from all different views and all different, political backgrounds. And
I would say 99% of jobs that would be
are not like that. And here she is in her little bubble, like talking about how important it is for us to make sure we have diverse thought. I don't doubt that these people, this is like the first time they've heard some people say some of the things that conservatives say during these like debates.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a good place to end. We only got 17 minutes in, Kiana. We're not even halfway.
Hot mess.
But I have so much more to share. I went instead. They talk about a study in this where they talk about when we get into CRT, and I feel like we need to stop there because they're about to go into it.
That's true.
And they talk about a study that says that if you have a Black name on an application, you are going to get discriminated against, and that's an example of systemic racism. Well, I read all 100 pages of the study, and it's good. I can't believe, I'll bet you none of them read it, and they're all like citing this study, and it's like the most junk study done by UC Berkeley, and I can't wait to share with you guys all the details on that. So please make sure you tune in to us again when we will do another live. I'm not sure when, Maybe we should try tomorrow during the day if you're free, because I do think we need to get this done. We need to get this done. Okay, let's do it tomorrow during the day. I don't know what time yet, but we'll do it tomorrow during the day at some point. It will also be on my channel afterwards. But yeah, make sure you tune in.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's and make sure you tune into part 2, because we'll be going into all the CRT stuff, which is really my wheelhouse. I'm tired. We spent 2 hours talking about gender stuff in this. I couldn't wait till we got into the CRT stuff. And by then I was exhausted. I was like, ugh, we're still here on this uncomfortable chair.
Left the hotel room at like 7:45 in the morning, right? And I'm like, I'm just gonna tool around and like whatever. Oh, it shouldn't be all day. You got back to the hotel at like, I think it was like 5. It was all day. You were there all day. And I was like, it's a good thing this is like a nice hotel, because I was just able to chill and like be comfortable or whatever. But I was like, wow, that's a long day. Crazy.
Cool. It was a long day. It was long. I actually really enjoyed it. I don't want to, Vice is annoying and everything, but they did treat us nicely. They only paid for one hotel night though, which is really annoying. We don't get paid to be on the panel. So let me make that clear. And there was a lot of comments in the thing where it was like all the people on the right are paid shills and stuff. Like, none of us are getting paid for our opinion. None of us. I know my friend Phil, who's the homeschool dad of 7. He's not getting paid for his opinion. I'm not getting paid for my opinion. This video is probably going to get demonetized. I mean, I am monetized on YouTube, but I really don't make anything because they demonetize everything. So we're not paid for our opinion. So that's just stupid and such a myth. But anyways, I'm really thankful to everyone who sat through this full hour and a half. I'll be posting clips on it. So if you want to see the clip highlights, if you like fast forward and you want to see the highlights, I'll be posting clips of it. But thank you so much for being here. God bless you guys. Thank you, Q, for joining me. I really needed you through this. You'll be back. You'll be back. All right. See you guys next time.